Hi, my name is Claudia, and I'm here to talk about my acting journey, which has taken a lot of twists and turns, but I think most actors or anyone creative, any artist, probably does not have a linear career in the arts just because of the nature of the business. And if you're not 20 and you're in your 50s, you get to a certain point in life where the twists and turns are sort of a challenge, but an exciting one. So I started studying theater as a child, acting, dancing, singing, for 6 years as a child. Went to college to pursue theater, but my family was a bit opposed to a college education in theater at that time. So I studied psychology and minored in theater. Did stage managing and acting and assistant directing, anything I could to get my feet wet, and I loved it. Even though I liked studying psychology, I had a feeling that wasn't going to be where I'd end up. I got out of college and immediately started to get headshots and resumes together. I knew what I was going to do. I was in New York City. It was the early to mid 80s. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of film and TV, so I was studying, I was singing. Voice was still a real interest of mine. I was doing some nightclub acts in New York and extra work on soaps, One Life to Live, All My Children, extra works on commercials, some print work, some modeling. But my passion and my interest was film and TV, and there wasn't a lot of it here. I did not want to pursue theater any longer. So I got on a plane basically, and I flew myself out to LA, only knowing a few people at that time. Spent a couple of months poking around, and a couple of months turned into 8 years. And it was a really important part of my career as an actor and as a woman, a young woman sort of coming to terms in her profession. I loved things about LA, and I didn't love things about LA. It was a real love-hate relationship. There were 3 to 4 really good years of TV. So I studied, I auditioned, I went out on a lot of commercials and TV auditions. And so there I was in LA, and I'd say 3 to 4 years were really good. Almost everything I went out on, I was booking. They were all small parts. It was television. It was the days of Beverly Hills 90210 and Get a Life and Life Goes On and a remake of Adam 12 and Highway to Heaven. It was sort of pretty consistent. I had a pretty amazing agent who did featured parts. So these weren't starring parts, but I needed to get behind the camera or in front of the camera, and consistently would send me out for really good things: drama, Law and Order, LA Law, just consistently. And I was also realizing how much I loved comedy. May not sound so funny right now, but I did love that, and it was sort of an unusual. I'd walk in and they would see me as professor, teacher, doctor, nurse, lawyer, and if I came in to read something funny for sitcom, it was unusual, and it was actually really nice, and those things were probably my favorite pieces of work. I studied with the Groundlings because I wanted to learn more comedy, improvisational comedy, and I loved that study with a teacher named Mindy Sterling, who went on to do a lot of really good film work. So 3 or 4 years were great, but during that time, the parts weren't getting bigger, the agents weren't getting better, the managers, I went through 3 managers who were drug addicts, alcoholics, very LA Hollywood stories. I won't go into all the stories, but there were some experiences with them when I found out they were dealing, or one of them just closed his office without telling the actors, and I just started to get a sense of the business that was starting to feel uncomfortable and not appropriate to me. I did commercials. I did my big national commercial was for Toyota, and we shot out of town up in the mountains. Eli Wallach was the voiceover, and it was a Toyota commercial where a raccoon jumps into the sunroof. My husband and I are out of the car. He jumps in, locks the windows, locks us out. And it was a great 2 days of shooting on a big commercial. A lot of local commercials. So for those 4 years, it was fun. The difficulty, again, is if the parts aren't big and the pay isn't big, it was also catering. I was a personal assistant to a very well-known entrepreneur, artist in LA, and that was a great experience. I was his personal assistant. Wearing a lot of hats and juggling a lot. And in your 20s and 30s, it's kind of fun. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of insane, putting 100 miles a day in a car in LA, but meeting a lot of people, catering to celebrities in their homes, so getting a taste of that as well. And there was one period I remember running around before social media where people sort of were looking at me, and I knew that was the period I was on a lot of shows, so it was sort of a bit of a touch of fame, which was sort of fun. And then I hit a wall, and then I said, is this really enough? Is this what you went to school to study for, these small parts? Getting a lot, not getting a lot, getting callbacks, the whole rejection thing. And I just decided to take a break, and I took a step back and realized I wanted to stay in the business, but wanted to use my skills in some other way. And my networking skills are really strong. I've always been able to put people in touch with people, help people get jobs, help friends get jobs, help people date and get married. And I love doing that. And I thought that sort of translates to casting. And I was ready to give other actors parts. I was ready not to take the parts any longer. And I mentored with a very major casting director in LA who had a big Sony film coming up, and I called her and I said, could I just sort of shadow you? And she said, come hang out, come spend as much time as you want with me. So I went to the studio, I went to her office. She said, give me a few hours a week. I ended up going every day. She wasn't paying me, and she said, you don't need to be here every day. I said, yes, I do. I'm amazed at what you do. She had 50 speaking parts to cast, and I was fascinated, and she had me sit in on the auditions with very major people coming to read for her. And after about a month, she called me into her office and said, well, guess what? My assistant just got his own gig. He's leaving. You're on payroll. And I booked my first assistant casting director job with her, learned a lot from her. She's still actively working in LA. I came back to New York for personal reasons. Right at that time, there were some transitions in my own life, and it was time to come back. And I hung up a shingle, and I called myself a casting director all of a sudden. She sent me out a lot of jobs from LA. She needed New York actors to be put on tape. So I had about 3 or 4 features where I was assisting her in New York, and she would come out and we'd work together, and I really learned a lot through her. And then my name started to get around in New York about assistant casting director, call Claudia, call Claudia. Well, I started to work on other big features, crazy stories with big name talent and directors, and realizing their needs and realizing what actors do when they come in, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. Sitting on the other side was really fascinating also as an actor. I segued from casting into coaching actors, and one of the reasons is because I learned so much as a casting assistant, and as a casting director I went on to do some print and theater of my own. And I saw so much about what worked and what didn't work. And when I coach actors now, which I do currently, amongst other things that I went on to do, they often ask, why I didn't get the part. I'd had a great audition. Don't you think I'm going to book this? And I often will say, there's so much out of your control. Just do your homework, do your best job, read the script, learn about the background, learn about the history, learn about the character, and just do your best work. Because there is so much that happens when you leave that room. Like, I remember on a big feature, the director wanted us to bring in women in their 50s as a bartender. It was 1940s, it was a saloon, Midwest saloon. He wanted a woman behind the bar. So we had some major theater women come in, and they all were wonderful. They all kind of blew me away. I thought, wow, I'd cast any of these. The tape was sent out to the director in LA, and he called, he said, awesome, I've changed my mind, I want it to be a man. So the next day, frantically, we're calling in men in their 50s, all major theater people in New York. Well, I thought about those women, I'm sure some of them found out soon after from their agents that it was then switched, the gender was switched, but I did think about some of them who may not have known and wondered. So I say to my actors, you let it go. They're going to change the age, the color, the race. I had another actor come in on that same film, and the director wanted Irish brogues, and he didn't get that piece of information. So the actor came in ready to do his piece. He did his piece. The casting director I was assisting said to him, oh, we needed an Irish brogue. Can you do that? He said, yeah, but I didn't practice that way. I can't do that. And she said, well, you can step out and take some time. I understand that, but that's what he said, no, I don't want to do this with an Irish brogue. She said, well, that's what the director's looking for. So she was giving him the opportunity to take as much time as he needed to work on it, and he chose not to. Another actress came in, it's 1940s, she came in with a crop top, ripped jeans for the lead in the film, and the casting director said, did you not get the notes about this period? Oh yeah, I just got off a plane, I didn't have time to change, I'm sorry. He said, well, I'm not going to put you on tape and send you out to the agent, to the director. And this casting director was nice enough to say, go home, change, and come back tomorrow. And not every casting director would have given her the time, and she did. She came back the next day, 1940s dress, red lipstick, her hair appropriate. But to fight, I saw a lot of that sort of, well, no, that's not what I wanted. That's not how I think it should be. And you're still the actor with your talent and your expression on camera, but the director is guiding the casting director. So I learned a lot about that. And then I learned about the actors who were flexible and were willing to try things and enjoying taking some risks. And I remember when I booked my national commercial, the director said to me, you want to know why you booked it? And I said, yeah, okay. I mean, because of course you were right for it, but you did one thing in your audition that no one else did. He said, you took a double take. And that double take nailed it. Because when the raccoon jumps in, I needed a double take. And you already had it in the audition. I didn't even remember doing it. But it was that instinct and that response. So the other actresses who didn't do a double take, why didn't I get the job? But there's so many things out of an actor's control, as I learned as an actor and as a casting director, and then as a coach. I remember casting a theater piece. It was a theater company who found me, and I did 3 of their shows. They had to come in with their own monologue, and one actress most actors just stood there or sat there and presented their piece. One actress got on the floor, and she did yoga positions while she was doing her piece. It was obviously, I don't remember what the piece was about, but there was something that made sense for her to be taking care of her body physically. She was amazing. I'll never forget her. And we asked her, we wanted to book her, and she was just being flown out to LA. She was just being discovered and was up for a series. So we lost her. But I'll never forget the risk she took to do the poses doing this piece. So it's things like that. And it made sense in the moment, of course. So the casting led to my wanting to audition a coach. A casting director called me one day and said, I'm supposed to teach a class tonight. I can't go. Can you do it for me? I said, I've never taught. She said, just go. There'll be sides. You'll cast the actors. You'll listen to their work and then just give them feedback. I said, all right. So I totally winged it, and I loved it. I felt like I had a natural sense of coaching actors, of giving them guidance. They responded really well. The school asked me back a number of times, and then the school asked me to do a 4-week cold reading workshop, and I did a few of those for them. So I had this other sort of skill that I enjoyed. From that, I realized I wanted to work one-on-one with actors, because to have 20 actors in a room trying to give them really comprehensive notes, my classes would end like at midnight. It was ridiculous. So I put up another shingle that I was an audition coach, and that business is still quite vibrant many years later. I'll coach actors who are brand new. I'll coach older actors who are coming back. I'll coach actors going out for an audition. I've started to FaceTime with actors who can't meet me in a studio, so we work on FaceTime. And I love that. Then in between all this, I became a magazine editor at National Women's Magazines. I needed a real job. I just needed to sit down and stay in one place. I was raising a family. I needed health insurance. I was married at the time to a struggling writer, and we just needed something a little stable. And I discovered a world of research editing at women's magazines. So I was a freelance editor at many titles, and then on staff for 14 years at a major women's magazine that still exists. And I loved that. I loved learning a new thing. I loved using my brain in a different way. I loved speaking to experts and sources. My niche became health and fitness, because that's my passion. So I did all the research, fact-checking on health and fitness stories for women. I also offered to cast real women for their stories. They were often looking for women, moms and professionals, single women. So I sort of raised my hand and volunteered, and I became sort of, for a few years, their casting director as well. And that was another little gig that I loved. They also needed editors to go on television shows and speak on radio shows about our stories, and I asked if I could do that. So I was on the Today Show and morning shows and news shows and some NPR radio shows. And so all my skills sort of it sounds like I've bounced all over the place, but they keep kind of meeting up and reconnecting. I lost my job at the magazine a few years ago as the industry is changing. The print world is in flux and not particularly healthy. And when I stepped away, I thought, what am I going to do now? And I decided I'm opening acting, I'm opening casting door, I'm opening back to the coaching, and I'll still freelance editing. So all these doors have been reopened. I called an old agent from years ago and I said, I'm back. It's been a million years later. She said, come on back. I now go out mostly for commercial and print work, not for film and TV as much. Just I haven't pursued it very actively. It's a little trickier. And it's nice to go in and audition and not need it as much and not have to have it as much because I have so much else going on in my life. But hopeful that I will start to book some jobs. I did a tiny little featured part on Law and Order SVU recently, and that was great fun as a high school mom. So if it comes back, and if it doesn't, I'm really okay with that too. I've done some stock modeling, and that's been sort of fun and cool. I ended up casting for the stock image group because they loved my ideas. And now I've actually created my own little production company. It's called Rock Locations. I've moved to the Rockaways in Queens on the beach a year and a half ago. And I thought, how can I use my skills out here and not have to commute into the city for all my work? And I poked around into these amazing businesses, surf shops, yoga studios, a wine bar, a wine shop, a pizza shop, a beer brewery, and people's homes, surfers' homes. And I thought, could I represent these for production? I asked every one of them, and everyone said, go for it, do it. We'd love the idea. So I'm right now representing about 30 owners, homes and businesses for production, film, TV, commercial, print. We're ready to go. It's taken a year for me to launch the business. I'm now in year 2, and I just booked my first shoot at a beach bungalow. It was a fashion photographer came to shoot, and he loved it. I'm excited to see the prints. I have a director coming out Saturday to look at one of my houses, film director, and it's just the calls are starting to come in, and I'm excited. I'm excited to bring production media to this beach community that I feel is just exciting. It's exploding. It's a very hip, urban beach town, and retail needs business off season, so this would be awesome for them. The homeowners would love to have the PR and the excitement of having shoots. We have shoots out there. They do take place, but I'd like a piece of it. So I sort of feel like all of a sudden I'm in production, an actor, casting director, coach, model, production, representative of locations, and I sort of love it all. I don't want any of it to end, and it keeps reconnecting, Hopefully maybe I'll cast one of these shoots out there. I don't really know. And that's where I'm at now in my journey. It's sort of an interesting time to talk about it and think about it at this point in my life.